Maple goes around destroying other guilds along with her teammates. Sally tells them not to make anyone escape and don't take prisoners. Maple arrives on a battlefield looking at her previous victim. She lasers the battlefield, wiping out her enemies for her. All the smart guilds starts wiping out the fodders. They clone Maple and releases them on the world to dominate it. Everyone watches as the monster creates a wasteland everywhere she goes. Maple logs out and says their guild came in third place. She thanks Sally for showing her the game and Sally reminds her to study. At the guild, they have a celebration for their win with all the big guilds in attendance. They have a toast to their success and drink.
In the night, Sally tells Maple that the game has updated and level 4 is now released. The entire guild arrives to fight the new boss, but Maple's murderous intent takes over, and with some support from her teammates, she begins mercilessly tearing the poor bastard apart until it decides that hell would be more compassionate than this demon before it. The guild goes up to the 4th floor, and seeing that it's larger than they thought, our party decides to split up to better explore the new level while gathering as much information as possible. Sally decides to hunt down monsters when she's suddenly attacked from the shadows. Her rival comes out to challenge her to another duel, and of course our assassin wants all the smoke. The fight begins with the mage keeping Sally away with her barrier skill, then casts a barrage of fireballs that she barely manages to dodge, before unleashing the sun to take her out. The mage begins to celebrate, but Sally crashes the party and sends her to the Shadow Realm. They return to the 4th floor where the mage is confused because she thought her last attack worked, before walking away while promising that she will win the next time they fight. Sally reveals that she got sloppy in her time from the game and had to rely on a skill that nullifies 1 attack per day to survive, then decides to get strong enough that only Maple can hope to defeat her. We go over to the samurai and find her finishing up a quest when the sword of Kusanagi appears before the swordswoman and they begin to fight. Our samurai starts to get overwhelmed by the katana and decides to do an all-or-nothing slash against her opponent. However, she takes heavy damage from the exchange, but the ghost blade was defeated in the end. Our samurai goes to the forest to test out her new weapon. She activates her Bankai to get the clear heart clothing and rushes forward to divide the monster by 2 before calling down even more swords to penetrate deep inside its body to bring this fight to an end. But our swordsman realizes that the skill also turns her into a prison sentence after she uses it. In the night, we find the walking Calamity looking for her next victim. She sees the leader of the Flame Guild and decides to stalk her under the cover of darkness, where she realizes that the guild master changed her appearance to enter a secret area. Maple decides to join her prey inside the building and finds the leader of the Flame Guild playing with living plushies. Upon seeing our MC, she begins freaking out because Maple is the enemy of all innocent creatures in this world. However, these ones are allowed to survive since she can't farm them for XP. Maple questions why she had to wear a disguise to enter this place, so she explains that as the leader of a guild, going into a room to edge with fluffy animals would make her look weak, and our demon decides to keep this secret safe. They exit the fun house when they're suddenly confronted by the Flame Guild, who questions where their leader has been, and she explains that the 2 guild masters have been exchanging information. Then the red-haired freak leaves Maple to go plan with her teammates. The next day, everyone is gathered on the new level to listen as the announcer notifies them about the treasure hunting event that's about to begin. Maple gets teleported into a jungle and sees many wildlife enjoying their peaceful existence, so she sets out to correct this by raining down destruction on the poor creatures. The rank 1 hears something in the distance and sees Maple appear before him in her true form, but since it's a treasure hunting event, the 2 strongest players on the server decide to work together. The giant demon starts walking through the forest while giving everything she sees a one-way ticket to heaven. They notice that some of the animals have escaped to the sky, so the rank 1 goes after them to show the wildlife that there is nowhere for them to hide from complete annihilation. While participating in a mass genocide, Maple accidentally uses her longest appendage to hit a tree that squirts out a golden shower of sticky fluids all over her body. The rank 1 decides to end this fight by creating fireworks to slaughter the remaining animals, but their mother comes down for revenge, so he decides to reunite the queen with her children. 2 days later, we find the duo riding on the Great God King Syrup, who lands near the rank 1's guild, and he leaves with them since the timer is almost over. After the event, Maple hosts a party with all the friends she has made while playing the game, and they decide to open the treasure they got from the mission together. Everyone is changed into a Christmas-themed outfit that seems to be randomized, but Maple is upset because she likes destroying innocent creatures and not cosplaying as them. A few days later, we find our guild taking on the final boss of level 4. Sally charges at the monster and takes off one of its legs while the mage gives it a shocking surprise, but the fox counterattacks with Will-O-Wisp. Seeing no other option, the samurai changes into her fan service form and charges at the boss so she can use long rods to penetrate deep into the monster's body, which gives the twins time to get close enough to smash the demon into the underworld. Our guild realizes that the samurai becomes a prison charge every time she uses the sword and reveals that Maple couldn't be there because she was too sick to play. Later on, Maple goes to face the level 4 boss alone, but she can't seem to find where it's located, so the demon randomly decides to copy the movements of the statues and gets teleported into a hidden area. An Oni congratulates Maple for finding him and activates Mastered Ultra Instincts to fight her, so she enters her mech form and launches a giant laser beam that gets easily blocked. She calls upon the Great Syrup to use Solar Beam to blast him, but the Oni jumps into the air, so the demon follows after her prey and they clash in the sky with the monster being pushed back. The Oni summons his weapon as Maple mounts the God King. She tells him to use Vine Whip, but the boss easily breaks through and blows her off the Great Syrup. Maple realizes that nothing she does has even managed to make a scratch on the boss, but she uses her talent for unaliving everything that moves to come up with a plan. Maple sends away the God King, then decides to unleash the sun upon everything that exists around her to bring this fight to an end. The demon walks over to make sure her prey was smoked, but he gets up to praise her for beating him. They go inside his home to have a meal where the demon gains the Pandemonium skill and realizes that the Oni was not the boss to level 5. Back on level 4, the rank 1 guild finds Maple sitting alone and explains that they're helping their new members to get to the 5th floor, so they decide to work together. They go to face the boss and Maple activates Loving Sacrifice to direct all the damage the party takes to herself. The new members tries to take on the fox, but they deal no damage to the shiny Nine Tails and runs for their lives instead. Our demon decides to use her new skill and activates Pandemonium to arise an army of demons that goes over to gangbang the poor fox until it returns to the Shadow Realm. Then Maple thanks them for all their help and leaves them behind to go up to the new level. Inside the cloudy land of floor 5, the twins suddenly appear in front of their guild master. She asks them why they respawned out of nowhere, and the twins admit that they lost a fight to a powerful monster. The duo invites Maple to participate in her favorite activity. She bleaches her hair to buff the team's defense as their opponent rises from its chair and begins launching lightning at them. The twins begin bunny hopping toward the boss, so it tries to pull a Moses on them, but they jump right in time to land a lethal blow to bring this fight to an end. Both the twins gain lightning abilities while Maple gains a new item. She tries it out immediately and explains that whoever sits on the throne gets their defense buffed along with continuous healing, while also giving the user the power to seal someone's abilities. They get a notification that level 6 is about to be released and go off to spend the rest of their time enjoying everything this stage has to offer, which included Maple using her skill to torture random innocent creatures. Our guild decides to take on the final boss and allows the twins to smash it as many times as they can until the poor bastard gives up on living. They go up to level 6 and finds that it is horror-themed, which makes Sally begin to freak out. The assassin uses a blindfold to travel through the stage, but admits that the only reason she's still on this level is because there are items that would be very good for her build, and Maple decides to go along to help find them. They ride on the Great God King Syrup while Sally is having a mental breakdown about everything she sees. our duo arrives at the haunted mansion and the assassin is scared to go anywhere near it, so Maple transforms into a mech and shows that she's the scariest thing alive in this world. They begin to explore all the rooms inside the house until Sally starts getting a hand job from the Wall of Freaks, but Maple sends the kinky ghost back to the underworld. A magic circle suddenly appears and transports Sally away from Maple, but the erotic arms also followed her, so she begins running like a track star. Because if the hands catch her, this show will no longer be PG-13. Maple tries her best to look for her friend, but Sally is hiding away in the closet so the ghost can't kidnap her. She decides to face her fears and sees an army of monsters gathered to start the party, but the greater demon finds her just in time, then uses her throne of light to keep Sally safe from the undead Riz Lords. The monsters begin going away because they found some new victims to torment, so our assassin channels the Speed Force to run away from the haunted mansion, where she finds that a new skill has been unlocked to double the effects of her items. The next day, Maple returns to the House of Horrors to get the items for Sally. She follows the twin ghosts into a room and falls into a hole with a lot of sticky fluids at the bottom, but our monster uses her telekinesis skill to escape the trap and begins controlling everything around her to capture the undead twins in a cage of slime. Maple confronts the ghosts, but they choose to return to the underworld rather than dealing with the demon in human form. At the guild house, we find Sally coming inside to meet Maple, where her friend hands over the items that they were looking for inside the mansion, but she quickly returns to give back the necklace because it's not meant for her, and after Maple gives it a try, she understands why. Later on, the game announces that a new event is about to begin. They explain that this will be a monster hunting quest where the players are awarded medals based on the difficulty of the monsters slain. Sally and Maple decide to team up like old times, while the rest of the guild will work together to complete the mission. Our duo is transported outside the Tower of God and opens the door to find a generic dungeon inside. Maple bleaches her hair and puts them inside a cloud of wool so they can travel the floor safely without activating any traps. However, when some innocent creatures cross her path, she mercilessly sends them to animal heaven. They enter the boss room and immediately deactivates the cloud as the boss rises from under the earth. Maple takes them into the sky, but the dragon uses its bad breath to force them back to the ground. Sally realizes that its mouth might be a weak spot, so Maple uses extreme speed to deep throat the dragon and bust a full serving of pain inside until she reaches its climax. They go up to the second floor, which seems to be a library. The cutscene is triggered, so they suit up to fight, and when the boss appears, Maple goes in to end its subscription to life, but it bondages her instead to steal most of the skills that she had unlocked. Sally begins running away with Maple and summons some ice pillars so they can hide from the laser beams. The assassin leaves the tank behind to take on the boss, but it summons minions to fight, so Maple uses taunt to draw their attention to herself. Sally uses airwalk to get close to the monsters, but it activates loving sacrifice, which causes her to start attacking the minions because all their damage is now transferred to the boss. She uses the ice pillars as shields to get within range to attack the grimoire's life points directly, which forces it into its second phase. Maple continues to redirect the attack towards herself, but one of the minions goes over to show that it has the best head game on this floor. So Sally begins turning up the heat on every book that she can find until the boss is transformed into ashes, which brings this hard-fought battle to an end. Maple notices that all her skills have been returned and they continue their journey up to the third floor of the tower. They hear something in the distance and see a golem awakening from the pool of magma, but Sally uses her ice pillars to hold it in place, then Spider-Mans her way over to it so she can launch all her water-based spells at the boss, but she does no damage against this monster. Maple summons the Great Syrupte's solar beam on the boss, but it enters phase 2 and begins freezing the entire battlefield. So the demon is forced to assume her true form to duel the golem, and after giving it a mind-blowing experience, they officially cleared this floor. They ascend to the 4th floor and begin exploring their new environment. Maple sees a giant turtle swimming free through the ocean, and the cruel demon enslaves the poor creature to a life of servitude until they decide it's time to move on to the next floor. then she makes the turtle feel unimaginable pain before it can escape to the afterlife. We go over to our guildmates and find them fighting against an army of undead warriors on floor 5, when a giant hand suddenly penetrates the ground as the Lich King arrives in the combat zone. The tank blocks its attack while the crafter gives it a shocking surprise, leaving the twins to finish it off. They start wondering how Sally is handling this level, so we head over to see Maple in her true form, testing if the Lich King has a foot fetish, and after the fighting is done it's shown that the demon's head game is unmatched, but luckily for Sally she chose to spit rather than swallow. The Rank 1's guild arrives on floor 6 as the Dark Magician is summoned to the field along with his minions. The mage begins by buffing her teammates and they use their newfound strength to slay all the summons, while the tank knocks the boss into the air. Then the mage transfers all the buffs to Faker, who goes up to one-shot the boss and successfully clears this level. On floor 7 we find the Flame Guild climbing down a mountain filled with traps. They go inside a cave where the boss tries to penetrate them with spikes, but their support comes in clutch to heal their damage. The guild master starts burning the monster alive before going up into the air to get a dramatic finish. Over to the 8th floor we find our guild struggling against the boss, who uses its tongue of happiness to make the girls' knees weak. Then we head up on floor 9 where our duo is struggling to climb some disappearing platforms until the boss breaks the heavens to enter the level. Maple transforms into a mech and begins flying towards the floating cube, but she gets blown off on impact, forcing Sally to use the Spider-Man skill to save her life. The assassin begins charging at the boss and uses air slash to score a direct hit, but it casts full counter to reflect any attacks that it comes in contact with. Sally has no idea how to beat this monster, but Maple always has a way to slay any life form and begins drilling into the creature, so she can break through its defenses to penetrate straight through its no-no square to bring this battle to an end. They go up to the 10th floor and come face to face with the last boss. The Hollow Knight comes at them and easily knocks Maple into a wall while almost ending Sally, but the tank uses cover to block a very lethal blow, giving the assassin time to land a hit. Maple enters mech mode to turn the knight into fireworks, but it flash steps behind her, then begins chopping away the suit until it is completely destroyed. However, Sally comes in clutch to save her life again, and the two of them decides that they have to go all out to win this battle. The assassin goes on the attack against the Knight of Crucible while the tank goes on defense. Sally begins using all her skills to restrict its movements, but it breaks out and lands a critical blow against a mirage, which leaves an opening for an attack. The assassin uses double team that are instantly wiped out in one blow, but this gives her room to land another hit. Icarus enters his second phase and begins setting the battlefield on fire. Sally goes to distract the knight, while Maple comes in to freeze their enemy so they can launch all their skills against it. The Knight of Thorns enters a third phase, which forces Maple to assume her true form to withstand a max-powered fire spin. The tank is on low HP, so this will be their final try of victory. Sally runs towards our opponent, but the knight targets Maple first. She uses Shield Bash to knock it away, while Sally comes from above to land as much attacks as possible. The Hollow Knight enters a fourth phase to push her allies away and begins summoning Swords of Light that he throws at our duo. Maple brings forth the Great Syrup to block the raid boss attack to give Sally a chance to get in close and lands a strike while Maple penetrates it from behind. The knight returns his swords to the field and begins focusing on Sally, but Maple uses cover to block a critical blow from the boss. Then she freezes the knight once again while charging up the self-delete spell, while Sally begins making a cage around them so she doesn't get caught when the demon unleashes the sun. Maple is shocked that Icarus somehow survived her attack and has to be saved from a trip to heaven once more, but Sally takes the chance to land one last attack against the boss to finish this fight once and for all. The two players celebrate their victory in conquering the tower. They go back to the guild house and the rest of their teammates join them after somehow defeating all the bosses in the event as well. Our party ascends to level 7 and finds a beautiful landscape filled with many amazing animals running around. The announcer tells them that some of the creatures in the forest are actually tameable, so they can either beat them into submission or find them through a quest. But each player can only have one Pokemon at a time. Maple and Sally decides that they will help their teammates tame pets, and the group begins looking for Pokemon that would best suit them. Our party rides on the Great Maple through the jungle until two Teddiursa come in front of them before running back to the forest. They begin chasing after them but quickly realizes that putting all their stat points into one attribute was not the smartest idea. Our party goes back to the guild house and gains the furry item set to increase their speed along with the last of the speed potion in their storage. So everyone decides that Maple will get more materials for potions while the twins go to capture their Pokemon. They return to the forest and begin to systematically slaughter any animals that are unfortunate enough to cross their path until the little bears are forced to reveal themselves. The twins drink some Red Bull for a quick speed boost and chase after the wild Pokemons, but once our furries catch up they find the Teddiursas playing house with Groot. The bunny girls try to attack the Trevenant, however it uses the Pokemons as shields before bondaging our hammer-wielding duo. They manage to break free of his grip and start running around in circles to confuse the Whomping Willow, then ends the fight with a final smash to send the monster to tree heaven. Then they make the two baby bears their workers without pay for all of eternity. We go over to Maple, who rides on the Great God King's syrup and sees innocent animals swimming by her, but she can't hunt them yet because she's on a mission. The demon arrives on a beach and starts collecting all the material that the crafter needs to make potions. When Maple is suddenly bondage and gets dragged into the ocean to be judged for her war crimes, but she briefly escapes by revealing her true form before the tentacles continues exploring her body while pulling the demon to hell. Maple awakens in a mysterious cave and immediately begins getting attacked by the tentacles once again, which pulls her in to show off its underwater head game. Then the monster proves that you can both swallow and spit as it finally comes up to do battle with our tank. Maple tries to defend herself, but once again the octopus tells her to get over here so she can get the deep throat treatment. Inside the Dynamax Tentacruel, Maple activates mech form to trigger the monster's gag reflex and gets evicted from its body, but it holds her underwater. The demon decides to return the favor by eating the poor bastard alive, however it begins struggling to survive. Maple decides to paralyze the creature of the ocean before continuing to turn it into a full-course meal until the takoyaki gives up on living in a life filled with suffering. Then Maple realizes that she gained a new skill for all her struggles. Back on floor 4 we find the samurai going over to a frog NPC where she gains a new quest from him to gain a legendary pet. The swordswoman travels to the west where she is confronted by an army of gummy bears and decides to summon her persona to the battlefield, before traveling through all the levels while defeating hordes of monsters that keeps getting stronger with each floor until our samurai faces off against the white snake sage. She tries her best to defeat the final boss, but it paralyzes her to get a free snack. The swordswoman dodges while landing a devastating counterattack and soon realizes that she cannot defeat this boss no matter how hard she tries, then makes a plan to go around it instead. Our samurai run for the hidden entrance with the snake following close behind her, but before it catches up she introduces it to fireworks and successfully cosplay as a skipping stone to enter the next area. Our samurai awakens on the final quest and gets up to go over to the altar where she sees a shiny Ekans sleeping, then forms a contract with it to become her starter Pokemon. Everyone goes back to the guild house and begins sharing the information they found out about this level. The crafter gives the bears matching drip with the twins. As Maple arrives home showing off the ultimate fap arm in existence, Sally following close behind, noticing that the demon has become even more powerful. Our guildmates begin discussing what monsters the rest of them will tame, and they decide to head out to find one before the next event is announced. Our mage wanders around town looking for anything that stands out as a secret mission until he sees a brand new NPC walking through the crowd and decides to follow him home. The redhead commits breaking and entering, then immediately notices that the bookshelf is strange as a slime reveals itself before running away. Our mage tracks the creature to a cave far into the wilderness. He enters to find a room filled with majestic crystals, but one of his reflections is not inverted, so he prepares to fight while the ditto transforms into our caster. The greatest mirror match in history begins with the two magic knights constantly using their grimoires to counter each other until our sorcerer catches him in a combo to bring the battle to an end. Then he claims the Pokemon as his own by forming a contract with it. The crafter arrives in the town and looks at the missions to gain a Digimon, where she sees a spirit animal that catches her eyes. She goes to a blacksmith to accept the quest, so he gives her a list of legendary items to craft with 100% efficiency. Our weapon maker wanders through town until she encounters Maple and the leader of the Flame Guild about to go out to slaughter innocent animals for experience, so they decide to help her collect materials along the way. The guildmaster summons a Ho-Oh in the town and starts flying our party towards the first area on the mission list. They go inside a cave where the crafter begins gathering the material, but a group of innocent monsters gets too curious, so the two women commences a great massacre upon every living thing around them until they learn to stay away. The crafter comes over to give the psychopaths potions to both heal and buff them at the same time, then they head deeper inside the volcano. Drago rolls out of a pool of lava to stand against our party. Maple activates Super Scion alongside her mech to charge at the monster, so she wraps her long slimy appendages around its face to prove that her grip game is unmatched. The crafter buffs the guildmaster's magic power and she jumps on Ho-Oh to join the fight. They start flying around the boss while hitting it with as many fireballs as possible until it finally decides to meet Dragon Jesus. The crafter has collected all the material from this area, so they fly off to find the rest of the items on the list. Hours later, our blacksmith successfully completes her quest and is taken to the spirit world by the NPC. She stands on an altar as a shiny Rotoms appears before her, so our weapon maker forms a contract with it. We go over to the tank and find him on a quest to get his Pokemon. He sees a cave below and goes inside the mountain's butthole where the undead begins to swarm him, however they are all easily defeated. The tank realizes that he can never catch up to Maple if he plays normally, so he must become something else to be useful. Our guildmate enters the boss room and sees an army of monsters waiting for him, so he charges at them while using life steal to stay alive. The drain tank makes it to the ship and faces off against the boss. They begin fighting, but our ally comes out on top, and for all his efforts the tank gains a chest filled with gold along with an armored Darkrai as his Pokemon.
Like for a cat girl, subscribe for a waifu, and remember to stay swifty.